A conventional Navy man by World War I standards, William Moffett initially had little interest in airplanes and those that flew them. He was very much a part of a U.S. Navy that revolved around going to sea on big battleships and big guns. I'll talk about transformation in our military. Thankfully, Moffett was a visionary as well. As limited as his exposure to aviation may have been at the time, he clearly glimpsed the future. As Moffett wrote in 1920, naval aviation must go to sea on the back of the fleet. The fleet and naval aviation are one and inseparable. A native of Charleston, South Carolina, William Moffett was born on October 31st, 1869. He was the son of a Confederate Army officer, commended for bravery as a member of General Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia. He was only 5 when his father died. Moffett entered the U.S. Naval Academy and graduated 31st out of 34 cadets in 1890. Moffett spent the next 2 decades serving on ships, ranging from wooden sloops to modern battleships and cruisers. After promotion to commander, Moffett became the skipper of the cruiser Chester in 1913. The crew's skills were tested in April of 1914, when the Chester supported the landing at Veracruz, Mexico. On the morning of April 22nd, Moffett landed a party of sailors and Marines. Throughout the day, Chester provided gunfire support while under constant small arms fire. His bravery and leadership were recognized with the Medal of Honor. At first, he regarded flying as something for the crazy or the foolish. That attitude began to change when Moffett became commander of the armored cruiser North Carolina. During this time, he was associated with Lieutenant Commander Henry C. Mustin. Mustin helped to shape Moffett's opinion about the use of aircraft in the Navy. In the fall of 1914, Moffett took command of the Great Lakes Naval Training Station outside Chicago, a post he held throughout World War I. He received first-hand experience working with the Navy's bureaucracy to obtain the resources for his projects at Great Lakes. This included the establishment of flight training and the opening of schools for aviation mechanics, quartermasters, and armorers. Just after the end of World War I, Moffett received a plum assignment. He was ordered to command the battleship Mississippi. During exercises at Guantanamo Bay, Moffett saw the battleship Texas fitted with wooden decks to evaluate the operation of spotting aircraft from ships of the fleet. Shortly thereafter, Moffett was assigned to Washington as Director of Aviation in the Office of Chief of Naval Operations. One of his first challenges was to respond to the efforts of the Army Air Corps, led by air power enthusiast Brigadier General William "Billy" Mitchell. Mitchell grabbed headlines by orchestrating bombing tests against old stationary U.S. and German warships off the Virginia Capes. Partly through Moffett's advocacy, the Navy established the Bureau of Aeronautics, which accorded naval aviation a more prominent place in the Navy's bureaucracy. Moffett was promoted to Rear Admiral and named the Bureau's first director. He realized that he needed to establish a strong aviation organization within the Navy to counter Mitchell's actions. Moffett held the view that naval aviation and the fleet it supported would only be successful if the airplane was fully integrated into operations at sea. With Moffett's support, the Navy commissioned 3 aircraft carriers which entered the fleet in the 1920s: USS Langley, USS Lexington, and USS Saratoga. However, Moffett also understood that the keys to an effective naval air arm would be its aircraft and air crews. Perhaps his greatest achievements were securing funding support from Congress for the development of modern aircraft and engines. His bureau worked closely with Boeing, Grumman, Consolidated, and other aircraft manufacturers to use the latest technologies and development of shipboard catapults and seaplanes. Moffett was strongly identified with the Navy's rigid airship program. He believed that lighter-than-air ships could serve as platforms for operating long-range scouting planes in support of the fleet. Heavy weather caused the crash of 2 huge airships, the Macon and the Akron. and the loss of many officers and men. One of those men who perished on board the Akron on April 4, 1933, was the sailor who proudly led the Navy into the aviation age, William A. Moffett. His unprecedented 12-year tenure as chief of the Bureau of Aeronautics enabled him to use the skills he acquired during his career to create an organization that would change the face of naval warfare. For that, he is recognized as the father of naval aviation. For his vision, determination, and perseverance in the development of naval aviation, William A. Moffett has earned his place in the National Aviation Hall of Fame.